Good morning, class. Welcome to online classes of SSIC. Today we will study about the case study of Sri Lanka, where there was the problem regarding the proper accommodation of power sharing. So, in this class, we will study about the changes which were brought after the inaction of the constitution in Sri Lanka and what steps were ensured to accommodate the proper power sharing in Sri Lanka. All these things will be studied in this class. So let's continue with Sri Lanka. All of us know that Sri Lanka is a neighboring country of India which is situated in the Indian Ocean, and the strait which demarks India and Sri Lanka is known as Park Strait. And it is an island which is full of resources. It was under the occupancy of British since 1947. But after 1 year, it became independent in 1948. After being independent, there were several challenges before this country. Its constitution came into the force in 1956, and the main postulate on the basis of which the inaction of the constitution of Sri Lanka got held was majoritarianism. So before explaining all the changes which were brought in Sri Lanka due to the inaction of the constitution, we will discuss later. And presently, I would like to elaborate the ethnic composition of Sri Lanka which was existing in this country. During British reign, this country was known with the name of Ceylon. It was known as Ceylon. The Britishers used to pronounce this country as Ceylon. So let's have a look for the ethnic composition of Sri Lanka. Now the question is rising, what is meant by the term ethnic? Basically, this term signifies the organization on the basis of the association of people on the basis of caste, religion, sect, language, or region. If we go through the linguistic ethnic composition of Sri Lanka, we will find only two classes that were Tamil and Sinhala. We can observe the majority of people used to speak Sinhala language. So, if we go through the population of Sri Lanka, we will find that Sinhala speaking community was present in a vast extent rather than Tamil community. 74% Sinhala speakers and 18% Tamil speakers. Further, we can divide the Tamils into two groups. These Tamil people belong to two classes that were natives and Indian Tamils. Now, the one question is rising: how did these people reach to Sri Lanka? The answer would be plantation agriculture. All of us are acquainted with this fact. The Britishers were the individuals who supported plantation agriculture during their reign in their colonies. Sri Lanka was also the colony of the British, which was totally favorable for the plantation agriculture of coffee, tea, and rubber. It required a huge manpower, a vast manpower. On account of this reason, from Tamil Nadu, which is an Indian province, the Britishers forced Indian to go to this country in order to perform the laboring activities for growing tea, coffee, and rubber. And the people who remained for a large period of time and did not return to their own country, which was India, were later on known as Indian Tamils. On account of having the citizenship of this country, they became the permanent resident of this country. There was the existence of social clashes between Tamil and Sinhala communities because Sinhalese people were supporting their own language in order to make it as the national language, as the official language, whereas Indian Tamils and native Tamils were supporting their own language, which was Tamil, for making it as the official language of Sri Lanka. But if we go through the ethnic composition on the basis of religion, we can observe various religions in Sri Lanka that are Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, and Buddhism. Buddhism became the official religion of Sri Lanka after the execution of the constitution because a large committee, a vast committee, which was Sinhala committee, had adopted this religion. So the main religion of Sri Lanka was Buddhism. So this is the ethnic composition of Sri Lanka. And I have told you that diversity exists in every country. It does not matter whether it is a big country or small. Diversity is also prevailing in case of India. On account of this reason, our country is also considered subcontinent. I have elaborated that why do we consider India as a subcontinent? On account of its diversity, which can be seen under various forms on the basis of religion, caste, sect, geographical conditions. There is the presence of an extreme diversity in India. So likewise India, Sri Lanka had also possessed the diversity, which can be seen under its ethnic composition. So, when the constitution of Sri Lanka came into the force, various changes were brought after it. So we have to learn about the changes which got held due to the execution of the constitution of Sri Lanka, and why did social clashes rise in this country between Tamil and Sinhala. This thing will have to be studied by us. So let's have a look. Changes brought in Sri Lanka after the execution of the constitution. All of us are acquainted with this fact that the constitution of Sri Lanka came into the force in 1956. This is one of the most important questions which is frequently asked at the board examination. In 1956 means after the inaction of the Constitution of India, nearly 6 years later, the Sri Lankan constitution came into the force. Execution, the first change which got held due to the inaction of the constitution was execution of the concept of majoritarianism. Execution of the concept of majoritarianism. So first of all, we will have to study about this concept. What does this term mean, majoritarianism? So literally, majoritarianism means in a country, the majoritarianism in a country, the majority community will have the power to administer and rule the country. According to this concept, the majority community of a country has a power to rule over the country by means of disregarding the rights of the minorities. Means all the things will be estimated on the basis of the interests of majority community. If majority community is supporting the language Sinhala, it must become the official language of this country. If the majority community is supporting the religion, Buddhism as the religion, it must become the official religion of this country. After the enaction of this constitution, after the enaction of majoritarianism, all the things which got brought in Sri Lanka that had the single base, which was the interest of the majority community. Now, what happened after the execution of majoritarianism? Sinhala speaking people became dominant, became superior, and they started to violate the rights of the minorities. They started to violate all the rights of Tamil speakers and Tamil speakers became downtrodden because they did not get their rights. They did not get the opportunities for moving forward. On account of this reason, they became totally depressed, oppressed, and suppressed, and wanted to have the respect, the dignity, the rights in their own country. So, the first change which got brought in Sri Lanka was Sinhala became the official language of Sri Lanka. Sinhala became official religion of Sri Lanka because it was spoken by the majority community of this country, which was Sinhala speakers. Sinhala became the official religion of Sri Lanka. It was the first change which got held in Sri Lanka after the execution of the constitution and after the execution of the concept of majoritarianism. The next change which got held in Sri Lanka was Buddhism became the official religion of Sri Lanka. Despite of the occurrence of various religions in this country, only the Buddhism became the official religion of this country. What was the cause behind this occurrence? The main cause behind this happening was the execution of the concept of majoritarianism. Because the majority community, Sinhala community, had adopted Buddhism as their own religion. On account of this reason, Buddhism became the official religion of Sri Lanka. The next change which got held in Sri Lanka, the supremacy of Sinhala speakers. Means all the university, jobs, and high-ranking posts in Sri Lanka were occupied by Sinhala speakers. After the execution of majoritarianism, the Tamil speakers did not get any better job in the administrative system, in the legislative system of this country. And if we talk about the education system, they did not get the equal opportunities, likewise Sinhala speakers. Due to this reason, all the university jobs, and high-ranking posts in Sri Lanka were occupied by Sinhala speakers. And when they got the supreme jobs, the high-ranking posts in Sri Lanka, they began to violate the rights of Tamil speakers. On account of this reason, they became totally suppressed, and now they wanted to gain their own rights. The basic way for changing all the things in Sri Lanka was to associate all the Tamil speakers for having their rights. By virtue of this reason, all the Tamil speakers decided to protest against this system. The supremacy of Sinhala speakers in the administrative and legislative system of Sri Lanka could be seen. Now the question is risen, why did all the Sinhala speaker became dominant over the Tamil speakers? Why we can observe the supremacy of Sinhala speakers in Sri Lanka? The reason, the only reason was the execution of majoritarianism. By virtue of this concept, the supremacy of Sinhala speakers in the administrative system and legislative system of Sri Lanka could be seen. So here we can observe the improper power sharing in Sri Lanka. If we talk about India, there is a proper accommodation of power sharing. In order to ensure the proper accommodation of power sharing in India, we can observe the existence of fundamental rights, which is equally given to all the Indians in order to abolish all kinds of social inequalities among all the Indians. These fundamental rights are the basic rights for the development of human resources. But the people who are underprivileged, downtrodden, oppressed and suppressed, who do not get the equal rights, likewise the forward classes. There is a provision of reservation in India, and we can observe that in the Lok Sabha of India, 84 seats are reserved for SCs and 47 seats are reserved for STs and 2 seats for Anglo-Indians in the Lok Sabha are nominated by the President of India. And if we talk about women of India, there was the demand for women reservation because women are also backward in India because they are not having the better literacy rate, they are not having the better sex ratio rather than the male of India. They do not have the proper representation in the administrative and legislative system of India. Women reservation bill got passed by the Rajya Sabha of India on 9th of March 2010. But it did not get the proper consideration in the Lok Sabha, and this bill is still pending in the Lok Sabha of India, and the women of India did not get the reservation in Lok Sabha because this bill was not passed in by the Lok Sabha due to the existence of patriarchal society. What is meant by patriarchal society? A society where the dominancy of men can be seen, where all the rights are given to the men for taking all the decisions regarding the family, regarding the women of the family. In order to ensure the accommodation of proper power sharing, in 1992, after the Panchayati Raj System Amendment Act, the women got reservation in the local legislative system for the total about the one third of total seats existing in the constituency. Why it has been done? In order to empower the women of India, in order to ensure the proper power sharing of our country, in order to empower all the existing human resource of this country, all the things have been done. If we go through Article 17 of this country, of our country, just answer me in the comment section what has been declared under Article 17. Just answer me in the comment section what has been declared in the comment section. Shagufta Naz, absolutely right. Abolition of untouchability means untouchability was an inhuman practice which had been practicing in India, which remained in the existence in India since a long period of time, which was a bane for the Indians, where some people of this country were considered untouchable due to their caste. So this system was totally abolished by the Constitution of India by means of executing Article 17. Most of the students are asking me to elaborate the last point. In the last point, I have mentioned the supremacy of Sinhala speakers in the administrative and legislative system of Sri Lanka could be seen. That means after the execution of constitution, and the constitution of Sri Lanka was totally based on the postulate of majoritarianism. What does majoritarianism say? Majoritarianism says that there would be the supremacy of majority committee. All the rights will be in the hands of majority committee. This postulate says it. So, after the execution of this postulate, the supremacy of Sinhala speakers in the administrative and legislative system of Sri Lanka could be seen. This was the last point, which is now elaborated by me. So, on the basis of given clauses, we can estimate what are the differences between Sri Lanka and India. In case of India, we can observe the proper accommodation of power sharing, whereas the Sri Lankan constitution did not perform any activity which can be considered the proper accommodation of power sharing. And for the development of any country, for the integrity of any country, there is an extreme necessity of proper power sharing. In order to ensure the proper power sharing, the constitution, the Bakers of India had adopted the system of fundamental rights in order to make all the Indians equally empowered. So these are the consequences which got held after the execution of the constitution in Sri Lanka. And the last consequence which got held in Sri Lanka was the beginning of civil war. beginning of civil war because the Tamil speakers wanted equality and their rights. Therefore, they began to protest. The last consequence which got held in Sri Lanka was the occurrence of civil war. What is meant by civil war? Whenever the existing communities of any country start a war for a certain issue, such kind of war which occurs within the territory of a country is known as civil war. Sinhala speakers did not want to give the rights to the minority of this country, which was Tamil. And the Tamil speakers wanted dignity, respect, and their rights because they were considering themselves as a citizen of this country. On account of this reason, they started a protest. And the protest got turned into a form of civil war because the Sinhala speakers started to suppress their protest brutally. Thousands of people were killed in Sri Lanka. What was the reason behind it? The only reason was the improper accommodation of power sharing. If the Sri Lankan government had made equally empowered all the citizens, this consequence, these consequences could not be seen in this country. But the Sri Lankan government had adopted the concept of majoritarianism. It decided that all the things will be drawn on the basis of the interests of the majority of this country. Therefore, it adopted the concept of majoritarianism. The Tamil people got united in order to protest against this system, in order to protest against majoritarianism. They associated their own group, which was LTTE. LTTE. It means liberation tigers of Tamil Elam. Elam means a separate state, a separate country, because all the Tamil speaker wanted a separate nation where they can form their own government, where they could have their own rights. And all the members of LTTE got engaged themselves in the civil war. And this organization came into the force in 1980. And the condition of civil war remained in Sri Lanka till 2009. Now, I can expect all of us, all of you can understand what is the importance of power sharing for the integrity, for the peace, for the fraternity of any country. What is the importance of power sharing for the development of any country? All the things can be estimated on the basis of given case study. In order to elaborate the importance of power sharing, the case study of Sri Lanka has been included as an example in the chapter. So, I hope all the things which have been taught by me in this lecture got understood by you. But still, if you are having any dilemma, any query with respect to the content taught by me, you can ask me just right now in the comment section. Okay, students, this class is finished. See you tomorrow with the next content of this chapter. Goodbye.